Okay, everybody. What I want to talk about is the ignition switch assembly. There's an issue with these Jeeps that was common in several different variations of Wranglers. This is a 2008 Jeep JK. Basically what it is you turn your key, get your accessory lights on, get all your lights on, try to turn the key to start. Vehicle doesn't even respond. You think something else is going on. You don't think of the ignition switch. Basically, the ignition switch sits underneath the steering column like this. Key comes in the side. There's a rod that runs across, disconnects, drops down your steering wheel lock, drops a pin, pressure on a pin that's inside here that releases the cable so that the cable can turn, and your shifter lever can move. Comes over the side here, and it basically turns this ignition switch that's on the side, connects down inside there, turns your ignition. So really, one way to test if that's your problem, if you can't visibly see it, is you can pull this ignition switch off and turn that with a screwdriver. Once you put the key in the ignition, get this off, turn that ignition switch, and if it starts up, then you want to look and see if you've got a problem with the assembly. The assembly is pretty obvious when it breaks. This one broke off on this side. It's supposed to be forked on both sides, and when it breaks off, it doesn't have what it takes to basically turn that ignition switch. So to get to this thing, for one, it's pretty easy to take off. It's only got 2 screws in it. It's got a screw here and a screw here. All the other screw spots that you see are to mount a plastic, one of the accessories into one of these points. This one here is to, I believe, connect the security ring around the ignition switch. This one holds the top of the part of the harnessing of the windshield wipers. Over here is holding on, I believe, some of the plastic for the headlights. So it's actually pretty easy to get off there once you know what you're doing. One thing is, all of this, once you get to it, you want to turn the key so that you can drop this steering wheel lock, and when you turn the key, it will also release this lever. Can't really see it inside there, I don't believe. A little pin. It will release the pressure on that, because you got to pull this cable out. And if you don't have the key in and have the key turned to the, I believe it's accessory position, you won't get this cable out, and it will also lock up with this up here. So figured I'd point that out. You're going to have to do that to get this cable out. You'll think there's something else with that cable, and there's not. Cable comes in through the back. It's got a little push tab that's on the top. Once you've turned the ignition key, push on that little tab on top when it comes to that point, and it should pull right out. So let's get into what I had to do to get this thing off here. Basically, you got to take your plastic off. So there's a plastic piece that's underneath your dash here. This one here that's up against the back is strictly connected in with tabs. You can pull that in or off, or on and off with just pulling it away from the body. It's got a plastic piece that goes up over the top, goes around the bottom, goes around the top. It's got 3 screws in it. 1 screw there, 1 screw there. These are all Torx screws. And then a visible screw here. No other screw holds this on, but what will happen is you try to take this thing off, and you end up getting this lip stuck behind your steering wheel. And what happens there is you can't get this bottom half off, and you think there's another screw. There's only 3 screws. This lip is what's holding it. Take a screwdriver, put it on here, but between your steering wheel and this, give it a little push back, push this piece back away from the wheel. It should drop right off. Only 3 screws in this, at least on the 2008 Jeep JK. Once you get that away, you can see you need to take the levers off the top here for the windshield wipers and the headlights. So there's a switch here you need to disconnect. This is your headlights. Disconnect that switch because it powers up or connects the power to the windshield wipers. There's one screw holding this thing in. These are Phillips screws, only 2 Phillips screws, I believe, that hold anything on. Everything else is Torx. Pull that screw out. This thing slides out just this way, straight out. There's a couple slots in there when you slide your new one, and you want to make sure you keep them in place because your lever for your blinkers are on there also. And if you misalign that, what happens is they won't return when you turn your steering wheel. You think you got a bad lever, but really you just misaligned it. So make sure you pull it out and make note of where these slots are at. Same thing with the switch on this side. There is a Phillips screw that's on the back side. Back in here, right there, a little black colored one. It was hard to see, but it's right there. Straight in, Phillips screw, pop that out. There's a hidden screw down here. I believe this one is a Torx screw. And then those are most of your hidden screws. Everything else, like I said, looking down at the top of this, these are all your upper screw points. And once you get these plastic pieces slid off, you'll see those other screws. Now, once you need to take this off, you need to order. I got mine off Amazon. They were about, I think, around $10 for a set of these security Torx screw bits. There's a little raised point in the center. The bits that fix this are 5-star, and they've got a hollow center. So you want to get those security bits, Torx bits. Unscrew that. Disconnect whatever of these switches you can get to. Once you get your parts off, I think you have to take this one off to get this blinker off here. But there are some others on the bottom. Let's see here. I believe there's one right there. Got to pop that off, get it out of your way. I think I already said, but perhaps not. Pop this red tab on the ignition switch off. If you want, there's a screw. It was kind of tough to get to, but there's a screw up here. I believe that one was a Torx on mine, but you have to look. It might be a Phillips if this has ever been replaced. Take that screw off. You can pull this ignition switch out of your way. You do it pretty good then. So then the next thing you do, get your Torx, security Torx. Take this screw out. This screw out there. And really, once again, looking at this, there's only 2 screws holding it in. So once it drops, if there's any resistance, it's either that you have one of these screws here still connected to a plastic piece. So take a look at that. Like I said, that's all the screws. The ring here for the security, the fob reader for your key. Your key, when you slip it in here, it gets read by that reader, and it lets the car know that you don't just have a cut key. You got one of the keys with the fob on there. This thing was a little interesting to get off. I thought there was more to it. I believe there's only the one hidden screw on the front, and there's a screw up on the top. But there's a tab on the bottom of this. I thought this thing was completely stuck on there. It's kind of in 2 pieces, so make sure when you do this that you get the tab on the bottom back in here disconnected so that you pull the entire unit off. Otherwise it will try to pull this apart in halves, and there's a very fine fish line size wire that runs inside there that you could break, and then you're going to be up a creek. So make sure that you release it and get those 2 screws out. This should pop up. There is a attachment, wiring attachment here. Get that off. Get this off. It's just a push tab. Pull this security piece off, reader, and you should be good. This whole unit then we'll try to drop, start working it out, get to the back side. Like I said, make sure you put the key back in it, turn it to accessory, and then release this lever that's on the top here, and this cable will pop right off. There's a yellow tab on the front that does nothing but push up on the pin that is released here when you slip it back in. So don't mess with that yellow lever. It ain't going to do nothing for you. The true lever is up on top. When you push down on it, if your key's in the right place, you'll pull it off. Now, once you get this out, you buy a new one. The threads on the top are non-existent. They basically cut holes in this. All the screws that you remove, you want to keep because they are thread cutting screws. So you'll screw back into this almost like it's a blank block, and it will rethread it with the screws. So keep your screws. Don't get rid of them, especially these two here, because you're going to want to mount your part with that. Now, when you get this back, and you need to put an ignition switch in it because it comes blank like this. So you're going to pull your old ignition switch out of your old one to put into here. It's actually pretty easy. There's another video online for it. But what you do is you put your ignition switch in. Or actually, to get your old ignition switch out, put your key in, turn your key to accessory. It will release a lock that's in there because it wants to know that you're rekeying it with the real key. There is a slot here, and when you shine a bright light down in there, you'll see a little button when the ignition switch is in. Push that little button, pull your ignition switch out, then grab your new part, put it in the same way, just slip it in with the key in. There's a couple guides here that will guide it right in. The button gets guided on the top, slot on the bottom of the ignition switch slides in there, slides all the way in. You'll see the pin click. You'll have your new ignition in this. This was really easy. There's another guy online showing you how to do that, but I just wanted to show you how to get this thing out of here. So once you get your key in, take some finesse to get it back up in there, because you got to fit this inside of a slot that's underneath the steering column. Slide it up underneath there, coming from the top. Make sure that you've got your holes from the ignition switch assembly lined up with the holes in this mounting plate, both sides. Make sure you push it up good enough. I slipped my knee underneath there and actually was able to push up on the assembly pretty well to get it flush with the bottom side of this plate. Put your screws in. Start screwing them down, and you should have it reconnected pretty well. Then you're just going to reverse the process. Make sure you got your key in there, and the key is turned to accessory. Put your cable back in the back side here. It should slide all the way through. You'll see that yellow piece come in through the front. Once you've got that, you've got basically the hardest part of this thing done. Then go back through and just remount your security, your fob reader around the ignition switch, your hidden screw here. Make sure you put that in. And then, like I said, everything else is visible on the top. Mine came with a new ignition switch on it, so I didn't have to put an ignition switch on here. It came with it. So really, once I slipped it up underneath there, all I had to do was reattach the ignition switch, put those screws in, and fired it right up, and it worked. So I did disconnect the battery when I put this thing together, because your face is in the steering wheel, and I don't know, with airbags and stuff, if you want to be having your face in the middle of that thing. But just for reference, I always disconnect my battery when I'm messing with these type of things. So not saying that I know everything, but I do disconnect the battery just for caution. So once I had that together, fired right up. I hope you can use this video. It saved me some time and money putting this part in myself.